Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Bob Sabatino. I'm the founder of Lyme Society Incorporated on Staten Island, a nonprofit advocacy group for patients. I am also a member of HHS Tick-Borne Disease Working Group in Washington. My opinions and my story are my own and not valued as those. I have to announce that. I was a patient and stricken by this disease about a dozen years ago. My case was not discovered till probably 3 or so years ago. By that point, I was debilitated. I couldn't walk. I was having strokes. I had heart issues. I had neurological issues. But science and technology and the simple thing of saying Lyme disease would be simple or not isn't what it was. There was a lot of co-infections. There was other reasons why things were happening. It took time to find the right doctors, the right diagnosis, and the right treatment to help me get to the point where I'm at now. Where I am today might look healthy, but it's not. I'm very thankful, knock on wood, for where I am. I'm thankful I have my son here with me, I have my 4 children. This disease is very painful. It takes a very big toll on your life. It strains a lot of things. I'm thankful to be here today with our island elected officials and the mayor to make announcement to how we come together and try to do things to help the community. What I could tell you and what we say every single year, what you could do in education and awareness can change how someone reacts to a situation. Every single year, even though I was struck by the disease, my children play in the parks. I recommend everyone use New York City parks. The parks we have are gorgeous. It's a luxury for us. With doing that, there's a way to be aware. There's a way to have an education. There's a way to know if something's wrong or not. And we take that, we have that conversation, we communicate with each other, we communicate through our children, and that can make a difference. With that happening, you allow public services to do the work they need to do to find the reason for the ticks, find the reason for the mice, find the reason with the deer. That's a whole different story. Data will tell a story for that, and you allow the officials to work that way. I thank everyone for the moment here. I'd like to
tell people what they can do to protect themselves.
To protect yourself, the first thing is education and awareness. There's natural things you could use. There's Promethean, there's DEET. What I do recommend to everyone do, and if anything, you pass this message on to everyone, be aware of your body. Look at yourself in a mirror. Ticks start out very, very small. It could look like a birthmark. It can look like a poppy seed. It could look in a bunch of different fashions till it engorges. Know the spots on your body. Let your children be aware of the spots on their body. We do a drill with little kids where we draw a gingerbread man, and we tell them for a week, look at yourself in the mirror and identify those dots and be aware of them. And if you notice one that's not there normally, tell your parents, tell an adult, tell a responsible party. Make a difference. That's where it starts. The awareness out there and the education can change children. They absorb it 1, 2, 3. It's not a problem. More so the adults, we get nervous and think of what it can do. I thank you. I'd like to introduce the Mayor of New York City, Mayor de Blasio.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Very much appreciate it. Bob, I want to thank you. Really appreciate you telling everyone your story, and really appreciate that you've gotten so involved to address this disease, to educate other people, and help make a difference for so many people. And it really, there's something particularly admirable when someone has had a problem and instead of turning away, turns towards everyone else to help them. I know that you're dealing with a challenge still. You look great, thank God, and I wish you continued good health, and thank you for all you were doing. Let's give Bob a round of applause and thank him. And we're going to talk about just how serious this disease is and all the things that we have to do to address it and all the things that everyday people can do to protect themselves and their family. This is a problem all over our country. It's a problem increasingly in this city, but nowhere more in this city than in Staten Island, and it needs a lot of attention, and we intend to give it the attention it deserves. This is a very serious disease with really lasting impact on people, and we've got to take it seriously. We've got to fight it in every way we can. I want to thank everyone who's here. You're going to hear from our health commissioner and from the borough president and a council member in a moment. Thank you to Senator Lanza for joining us as well. Thank you to the good people who work in our parks and serve us. We really appreciate your good work because Bob's right, our parks are so important to everyone in this city and in this borough, and we want to enjoy them. We do not want to fear going out to take advantage of nature and enjoy athletic activity and all the things that matter to us. So we have to get this right for everybody. So look, this is a very tough disease. One bite from one of these ticks can change someone's life really for the worse. And we understand that. We don't want to see anyone affected by this disease. We understand a lot of people are vulnerable, and it's going to take a lot of different pieces to make a difference here. You're going to hear from our health commissioner about a number of the strategies we're putting into place. And we also, as Bob said, it's so important that people are educated about what they can do to protect themselves and their families. That personal piece of the equation really, really matters because those ticks are out there. They're on deer, they're on mice, they're on other small animals. They're going to be around for a while we figure out how to try and eradicate them once and for all. They're going to be here for a while. We have to protect people in a whole variety of ways. Our elected officials have been in the forefront. I particularly want to say to the borough president and the councilman, and also Councilman Matteo is not here with us, but he's been part of this discussion. Thank you for having sounded the alarm. Thank you for having helped us all to understand that this was a growing problem that needed to be addressed. Now, what we're putting together here is a new approach because this problem has been growing, again, all over, and we see now some new aggressive approaches that we're going to need to address it. For one thing, we will be announcing the most aggressive tick control policy in the history of New York City. So we're ramping up on a variety of levels to go at this problem. We're doubling the number of parks that we are surveying to be ahead of this problem, to know where the ticks are so we can go at them and address them. We're adding Department of Health staff to our parks teams that are already on the front line addressing this issue. We're deploying insecticide in parks where Lyme disease is more likely to occur. These are the bait boxes you've heard about that we have a lot of hope for. We want to see if this strategy will work on a wider level. If it does, we're going to use it aggressively all over to make sure we're protecting people. Obviously, this issue connects to the question of the deer population. It's complex because, again, the ticks are carried by mice in large measure, other small animals, but the deer are a crucial piece of this equation too. What we know already, and this is some good news, is the deer population is down 8% in the last year. We know half as many fawns have been born. And we know that as of March of this year, 94% of male deer on this island were sterilized. That is real progress. We expect a substantial new reduction in the deer population in 2018. We want to keep driving down that population aggressively. So that's a big part of the strategy, but I want to remind people the other parts of the strategy are necessary because even without the deer, unfortunately, the ticks are being carried by other animals as well. There was, I thought, a really good article in the Staten Island Advance this morning. I was reading coming over on the ferry about the different approaches that are being used. New York State is looking at an approach that's very interesting in terms of trying to apply insecticide directly to deer. This is a new idea. We want to see if it's something that can be used on a bigger level. So it's not something we're doing yet. We're going to work with the state to see if that's something we should implement here. Again, any strategy we think might work on a bigger level, we're going to put into play. All of that matters. And then I say to everyone, to all my fellow New Yorkers, to everyone who lives in Staten Island, protect yourself. That's a big part of the equation. You're going to hear some details from the health commissioner, but protect yourself. You are your own best line of defense. You are your family's own best line of defense because you can identify this problem and act on it. And the earlier you act on it, the better. Use the bug spray. Dress in clothing that helps protect you. I'm someone, I can tell you, I love to go out in, you know, sandals or flip-flops and all, but I have been schooled many a time. It's something that unites what my mother used to tell me to what my wife now tells me. I've been told many a time, in any area where it's a wooded area or there's tall grasses and all, put on socks, put on sneakers. Those common sense things really make a difference. So as I conclude, I'm going to say a few words in Spanish before turning to the commissioner and the elected officials. Look, the bottom line, Lyme disease is a serious disease. It is a life-changing disease. It requires serious solutions. It requires urgent solutions, and that's what we're going to provide. A few words in Spanish. Nuestras familias no deben vivir preocupadas por la enfermedad de Lyme en los parques o cuando sus hijos juegan en el patio. Por eso estamos anunciando el plan más agresivo de nuestra ciudad contra esta terrible enfermedad y para controlar las garrapatas. Sin embargo, la mejor defensa sigue siendo usted. Use repelente, busque picaduros y conozca los síntomas y las señales de advertencia. With that, I'm going to turn to our health commissioner. She's going to give you remarks now. I want to say to members of the media, if you have questions afterwards on the approach we're taking or on the disease itself, how it manifests, you know, details about the science around the disease, Dr. Bassett will stay after and be ready to answer those questions. But I want to thank her for being here. She's one of the voices all New Yorkers listen for in terms of how to protect themselves and their families, and she has really important information for us today. Our Commissioner, Dr. Mary Bassett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to put my props, which will be recognized, I believe, by the Borough President. We did an educational session at the Staten Island Borough Hall, where actually somebody like you, sir, spoke, who was a senior member of your staff, who lived with Lyme disease. So I want to say how excited I am to be here together with the elected officials and our mayor to announce this plan. This is a very important issue for Staten Island, as you've heard from the mayor. The number of cases of tick-borne diseases, of which Lyme disease is the most important and the most common, have been rising across our country, within our city. But it's in Staten Island that we see the largest number of cases. And Staten Island is a center for local transmission, meaning this is where we see people who've acquired their Lyme disease here in Staten Island. Citywide, most people get it from traveling outside of the city, but here in Staten Island, between 50 and 60% of people get Lyme disease here. So while we want all New Yorkers, and Staten Island is lucky to have so many beautiful parks and wooded areas, to enjoy the benefits of our parks, particularly in the summer months, now we really are going to be in the position to sound the alarm even louder about taking precautions to prevent tick-borne infections and extend our ability to control tick-borne illnesses in the city. Just to give you an idea of the numbers, in the past 5 years, the number of cases of Lyme disease in people, this is, increased from about 750 in 2013 to over 1,000 in 2017. That's a 44% increase, nearly 50% increase. And we also saw these other diseases that some of you may have heard of, babesiosis, anaplasmosis, go up. So these numbers tell us that we have to do more. And that's why we are so pleased to be able to talk about our efforts. We have a problem with our tick population. Not only have the number of cases in human beings gone up, we are seeing more and more ticks in our tick surveillance program, and close to 20% of these ticks are ticks that have Lyme disease. So what we are going to do now with the new commitment from the mayor is to increase our surveillance and control efforts. We're going to expand our ability to monitor the ticks. You heard we're going to be doubling our surveillance from 14 to 28 sites here in Staten Island. And we also are going to be enhancing our ability to capture cases, interview people who have Lyme disease, and enhance our surveillance. We also are going to be adopting these novel strategies that you've heard about from the mayor. And these are strategies that tackle the field mice, which are what we call a maintenance reservoir for Lyme disease, and also explore opportunities to tackle the presence of ticks in the deer population. You know, prevention is always the best medicine. And so I'm going to take a moment to talk about really what will remain a mainstay of our efforts to control Lyme disease. And that is to prevent the acquisition of ticks by taking precautions when you go outdoors, to identify the presence of ticks on your bodies and the bodies of our pets, because pets, dogs and cats, can also get Lyme disease. And then the importance of early diagnosis, because as you've heard, Lyme disease can be a very protracted and complex infection. It can affect our nervous system, our hearts. It can lead to very severe symptoms. It's nearly always treatable, but sometimes it's not possible to treat. So early diagnosis and early initiation of antibiotic treatment is very important. So let me begin with what it means to go outside. And on a day like today, it's a little hard to tell people that you have to stay covered. You need to wear socks and shoes, which the mayor referenced. You not only need to do that, you need to tuck your long trousers into the top of your socks. The idea is to leave as little skin exposed for the tick to attach itself to if you happen to brush it in grasslands or as you go through wooded areas. It's hot, so it's hard for a lot of people to follow this advice, but it is the safe advice. Wear a hat, wear a bandana, wear long sleeves, wear long trousers, wear socks, tuck your trousers in the socks, wear shoes. The next step after you return from a wonderful escapade in the wooded area is to check for ticks. And you heard that they can be as small as poppy seeds. So feeling for them, and that's what Tick Check Harry is for. If anyone later wants to feel it, you'll be able to see what it feels like to feel for a tick. We use this with children, but I think adults can also learn from Tick Check Harry. And you need to feel for them. So you need to feel behind your ears, your neckline, your waistline, between your legs, and you have to check yourself with actually feeling for them, not just looking for them, because sometimes they really are a speck, and it's only by feeling a little elevation. Then if you find a tick, you have to remove it safely, and that means using a pair of fine-tipped tweezers, pulling it out with gentle, continuous pressure from the base where it attaches to the skin. Either flush it down the toilet or put it into alcohol. If you're not sure how long you've had that tick bite, then you should call your healthcare provider and talk with them about whether you should come in and discuss beginning antibiotic treatment. There are some places where so many of the tick bites are believed to carry Lyme disease that people just start individuals on antibiotics. So that's a conversation that you should have with your healthcare provider. With luck, we'll keep people from getting important tick bites. But if you get a tick bite, you have to be very alert for a skin rash. And that is a characteristic rash. It looks literally like a bullseye, like a target lesion. It's red in the center, a circle that is not red, and then another circle that is red. Anybody who's ever seen one will never forget what it looks like. It's very characteristic. If you have that, you have to see a doctor and begin treatment again. The earlier you start treatment, whether you saw a tick bite or not, if you see a lesion like that, you should seek care. Other symptoms are much vaguer. That's probably why you, sir, didn't recognize that you had Lyme disease. It can be just a flu-like symptom, which can be lots of things. But if you're in an area where there's a lot of ticks and Lyme disease, flu-like symptoms in the summer months should prompt you to see your provider and mention to them that they should consider Lyme disease. Again, very readily treated with common antibiotics, very important to diagnose it and treat it early. So I've finished being the doctor for you. But I want to just say how important it is that we'll be able to expand all of these activities, our surveillance, our public education, and the initiation of the bait boxes and exploration of using pesticides on grasslands. There's a new fungus-containing pesticide that's biologically active but doesn't hurt people that we're also looking at, as well as the possibility of treating the deer directly. We understand that people need protection and that people are not accustomed to being afraid of the outdoors. We want people to understand that they can take precautions, they can be alert to symptoms, and we want them to continue to go outside and enjoy the beautiful parks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Appreciate it. I'm going to give you your dog back, Doctor.
Oh.
Pass along the dog. Thank you.
I wanted to show this.
Go ahead. Come over. Tell them what it is.
This is a very simple everything you need to know about ticks that we use in our public education sessions. And anybody who, we brought some with us, anybody who's interested, we're happy to hand them out.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thank you, Doctor.
That's okay.
I want to turn to the Borough President and again thank him for always being a strong voice for the people of this borough and reminding us that we have to look under every stone for ways that we can serve people and address problems. This is a challenging problem, but I know if we stay at it, we're going to get it done. So, Mr. Borough President, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, I will readily admit, thank you. I will readily admit from the outset that I am obsessed with this issue. I have become obsessed with Lyme disease and other tick-borne diseases. I've become obsessed with ticks in general. That stems from the very first conversations I had with Deputy Borough President Ed Burke, who suffers from Lyme disease. It stems from conversations with my dear friend Dee Vandenberg, who is suffering from it. It stems from 4.5 years since we've gotten to Borough Hall focusing on this issue and educating ourselves on this issue. In my team and I, in the last 4.5 years, have spent a lot of time focusing on this, not because we are alarmists, but because we know the serious, sometimes very serious medical side effects, because we know the data and the trends that are happening on Staten Island, and we know ultimately how this can impact lives. The mayor said this is a life-changing disease, and it most certainly is. I have talked to Staten Islanders whose lives are forever different. And unfortunately, this situation worsens across the country. The numbers on Staten Island, we've been in constant contact with the Department of Health. We work collaboratively with them. The numbers are just back from their tick sweeps in 2017, and the incidence of the black-legged tick on Staten Island has doubled. So we have more black-legged ticks on Staten Island. What might be even more troubling is that the number of Lone Star ticks on Staten Island came in actually greater than we had expected. And if you talk to Bob, Bob will tell you that the Lone Star tick is different than its brethren in that it's much more aggressive. And Bob talks about how the Lone Star tick chased its hosts. And at first I thought that was hyperbole, but that was confirmed in talking to Dr. Osvelt about how aggressive they are. So the numbers on Staten Island continue to worsen. In the words of Dr. Richard Osvelt from the Carey Institute. This is an enormous and growing problem across the country. There are now 300 or 400,000 cases of Lyme disease nationally, and if you talk to certain folks, they will tell you that is way underreported, exponentially so, maybe tenfold so. And that is an issue that we have to get better at on Staten Island and the city of New York, and that is working with our primary care physicians to make sure that we have better reporting. Don't tell me there are 1 or 2 or 10 cases of Lyme disease on Staten Island. That is not accurate, and I'm not saying that's a criticism of the Department of Health, but we have to educate primary care physicians, and we have to do a much better job of getting a clearer understanding of where we are exactly with this disease. Several months ago, I saw a story, it might have been one of my friends from the media here present today, a story about the tick project being undertaken by the Carey Institute in Dutchess County. The numbers in Dutchess County, Senator Lanza, as you probably know from talking to your colleagues, are off the charts. If you go to the Millbrook Vineyard, I know Joe Borelli has been there, great winery in Dutchess County. I encourage you to go, but take all those precautionary steps. But the Carey Institute is doing incredible work. Dr. Osfeldt, Richard Osfeldt, is leading it. And that's when we first heard about, months ago, the use of the fungus. That's when we heard about the bait boxes. And if you follow my Twitter feed, you've seen over the last several months us tweet out a cartoon that we have done. We call it the Mouse Car Wash. You've also seen us tweet out, and we'll make available to the media, an actual picture of one of the bait boxes that Dr. Osfeldt showed us, a simple metal box that has bait, draws the mouse in, and the mice get drops of the same ingredient that we put on our cats and our dogs with for their collars or for the drops. And the idea is to prevent cases from happening before they start by reducing the tick population. We can stay all day and all night. I will provide the Johnny Walker, and we can debate, and you could hear Senator Lanza go on for hours about the role of the mice and the role of the deer. Dr. Osfeldt has a book, and one chapter he entitles it, It's the Mice, and another chapter, It's the Deer. So today we're going to talk about the mice, but we most definitely have to continue talking about the deer. The ticks are on the mice at a different stage in life as nymphs. Later on in life, as adults, they are most certainly on the deer. What we want to do is follow the lead of the tick project, follow Dr. Osfeldt's lead, and introduce these bait boxes across Staten Island to reduce the tick population. I want to apologize ahead of time to my dear friend, Dr. Osfeldt, because he is a researcher. He is an academic. He's a brilliant guy. He doesn't think the pie is fully baked yet. I am an elected official who has friends like Dee Vandenberg and so many others who are suffering from Lyme disease. My thrust is, you know what? The science may not have borne it out completely to your standard, but we got to talk to the mayor, and we got to get this on Staten Island. And I'm happy today that we are, in fact, announcing it. The mayor alluded to the 4 posters. Dee's been talking about it forever. This is for deer. Think about it. Same thing. Draw them with food. The deer roll up against the post. The post drops some liquid on it to kill the ticks. The idea is tick suppression. I look forward to the day that we have those on Staten Island. I look forward to working with the city and the state to get them here. I don't want to wait anymore. And I am happy that the first formal press conference that Mayor de Blasio is having is in fact on this issue. This is not a case of, well, you got Lyme disease, go to your doctor, you do a couple of bouts of doxycycline or amoxicillin or some sort of penicillin or antibiotic, and everything is hunky-dory. Sometimes, yeah, that is the case. Many other times you have the path that Bob is taking, the path that Dee is taking. In Nantucket, and I'm going there in September, and you will see all kinds of ingredients and homemade recipes and clothing that I will take with me. In Nantucket, they are in a 3-year project where they are releasing genetically engineered mice. Whatever the local community wants, I'm in favor of it. I don't know if we'll ever get to that day on Staten Island, but Borough Hall will not rest until we are doing everything to suppress the tick population and reduce the number of cases. I will close with this. There was a really important article that appeared on Vox.com about the inoculation, about a vaccine. There was a Lyme disease vaccine on the market for a short while, and during the hysteria of anti-vaccination, it was pulled off the market. When Dr. Bassett came to Borough Hall with the dog, I actually had my dog. My dog, Jocko, my pug, my 13-month-old pug, has a Lyme vaccine, and you and I cannot get that. We need to do everything we can to push Washington, D.C. to make a vaccine available again. If you don't want to get it, I'm not trying to compel you to get it. God bless you. I know I want one. I know my wife wants one. I want to be able to go with the Borellis to Millbrook and be smart and enjoy that. I want to be able to go across New York City and cross Staten Island and enjoy our great park. So I've spoken too long, but I am really passionate about this. Mr. Mayor, again, I want to thank you for the work your staff has been doing with Jason Reshevsky, my chief of staff, Dr. Ginny Montello, who heads up our health initiatives. This is not an overnight thing. This is the culmination of a phase. We got a lot of work to do, and I take anybody up on the offer at an appropriate time with appropriate designated drivers to talk with Senator Lanza and I about the deer factor along the lines of the mice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I do one last thing?
Yeah, of course.
You want to stand here, Mr. Mayor? Sure. I'm not sure if you could see it. We'll make this available. This is a sample of adult ticks, and it's a hard time seeing them. You can see them?
They're really small.
Yeah, but they get much smaller than that in nymph stage that we got in our last trip to the Carey Institute. But as Bob said and the doc said and the mayor said, in the nymph stage, they're really hard to find. That is June. By the way, the notion that Lyme awareness is in May is silly. Listen to Dr. Osfeldt. It should be April. This has happened, whether it's climate change, whatever you want to argue about. April is the month that we should be first letting folks know about it. And the nymph stage is the stage that you are most likely to contract Lyme disease. So, and they are tiny little things.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Borough President. Look, everyone heard the passion in Jimmy Oddo's voice to get ahead of this issue. I just want to align myself with something that the Borough President said. We understand there's different viewpoints scientifically. We understand we don't have all the answers. We understand there's a lot of stuff still being experimented with. But we have to act in any way we think could plausibly make an impact. And that's, I think we are very much united in the view, let's put every strategy we have into play and see if it can make an impact. And if it does, then we double down on it quickly, because we want to make an impact on people's lives. We want to protect people, and we have to do it quick. We're in this beautiful park, and I think this is like the poster child for the whole challenge we're discussing here. Look outside. Look, we're literally through this window. It's beautiful. You want to be out there. Who wouldn't want to be out there? And you don't think of, and I say this with absolute respect for our health commissioner, you don't think about how much fun it would be to be putting on lots of clothes. You think of going out and frolicking in nature. But we got to be serious about this and take all the precautions we can take. This beautiful park not only is in Councilmember Joe Borelli's district, but he just told me his home is right on the other side of the park, so this is personal for him. He's also been in the lead, sounding the alarm on this issue and looking for every strategy at work, and we're going to work in close partnership with him every step of the way. Councilmember Joe Borelli.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, brother.
Wow, I'm the only one to show up without visual aids. This is awkward, to say the least. Had I known, though, I would have brought in a lovely Tokai varietal from Millbrook, because on a day like today, a chilled Tokai wine is fantastic. I know you're a sommelier. Wonderful, wonderful wine.
I'm not drinking it.
So I just want to welcome the mayor to what is not just a park on Staten Island, but it's my neighborhood park. I think it's probably one of the most unique neighborhood parks one could have living in New York City. And I was thinking about why you would want to come here. Then I saw all those sweet canoes out in the parking lot, and I know from that picture you enjoy canoeing. Now, you must have some skills with a paddle, because I would never be able to convince my wife to join me on a canoe. I mean, you must be right. I did a little more displacement with my end of the canoe. But seriously, folks, I want to welcome the mayor, obviously, to Blue Heron Park, which, as he did point out, is the park that's closest to my house. It's the park where we come probably once or twice a week, and thanks to Sergeant Khalil, who's behind me, and some of the folks that work here, they do an absolutely outstanding job of making this park great. My son has a name for some of the 3 turtles in one of the tanks. The fish, I noticed the fish not doing so well. I saw them, sorry. My son did like the fish. We're not coming today for obvious reasons. But this is a personal issue for me. My son and I, he's only 3, the oldest one, we have spent more quality hours taking a lap around Blue Heron Park than probably doing anything else in his short life. So it is something that is so fundamentally causing fear that he might potentially be facing a debilitative illness, from something that he could get in the park. When I was a kid growing up in this neighborhood, we shared some fears of our parks. They were usually about mosquito bites and poison ivy. I just showed the doctor my poison ivy I got actually from this park about 2 weeks ago. We want to, true story, if you saw me lifting my leg up earlier, you probably did see that. It's disgusting. I won't do it again. Yeah. Okay. But this is an issue where, as the mayor said, there is some disagreement on deer and what have you, but to not take steps to address this significant public health crisis to some degree would be wrong and immoral for city government to do. So I want to thank the mayor for spearheading this. I want to thank Dr. Bassett, obviously, for coming out and providing the expertise. And I also want to say publicly to the mayor, thank you for funding another study about another major Staten Island health crisis, the Fresh Kills landfill cancer study. It's something that he and I had spoken about personally for a number of times. And as someone who grew up within eyesight of the dump, it is critically important that people know what dangers they face throughout their life. So I'm gonna just cut it short because it's really hot and I'm really hungry. But again, thank you, Mayor, for coming out here and making this announcement where it probably is the epicenter of the tick-borne disease problem. So thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Thank you very much. I'm going to call up our Health Commissioner. She will continue if there's questions on any of the science or any of the strategic work we're doing. Council Member Borelli and I are about to go and spend some quality time together and talk about a whole lot of issues. And I want to commend you publicly on that health study related to Fresh Kills. Again, another example of a Staten Island elected official sounding alarm on something that deserved more attention, deserved study. We don't have all the answers, but we're going to go find them and figure out the best path forward. And that's certainly true when it comes to the ticks as well. So thank you to the elected officials for your strong stance. The Health Commissioner will come up now and we'll be happy to take any questions on the technicalities and the science. And again, we are going to stay on this issue for the long haul. Borough President, you have my commitment. This city is going to be united with you staying on this issue for the long haul. Thank you, everyone. Come on up. Thank you.
You made a better offer. You offered up the Johnny Walker. Yeah. All right. All right. I don't know who's going to be fielding any questions, but I'll do my best to answer them. Yes.
My name is Dee Vandenberg, and in August of 2017, doctors at Staten Island University Hospital sat my husband down and said, "We don't know if she's going to make it." I had no tick bite. I had no rash that anybody knew about.
Right.
I had spinal meningitis going into the brain from May. They think we got that May. Myself and the 13-year-old next door to me. I have 11 houses by Wills Pond Park. 10 people have Lyme's disease. My spinal tap showed 9 positive bands. The CDC said anything over 5 needs to be reported. I only know of one person on Staten Island got a letter from the New York City Board of Health. I haven't gotten one. similar to Hurricane Sandy. If the feds don't have the numbers, they won't let anybody help us. My 7-year-old on the corner of my house while I was away on vacation this year just came down with Lyme's disease again. 2 days ago, they took 3 nymph ticks off my neighbor's wife. We're in an epidemic here if the feds don't have the numbers. And I will not question a procedure unless I know what that procedure is. I spoke to the CDC. They are not happy with New York, period. They're not getting the numbers in. I have Lyme's disease, 13-year-old. The father had it twice. Now the mother has it, and the cousin on the corner, 3 houses away, has it. 9 bands positive, that's way over the 5. I just got bit again 3 weeks ago. I got bit on Senior Avenue going to my Lyme disease doctor's office. I almost died from this. I had no bullseye. Kid next door to me at 13 was 3 beds away from me in the neurological unit. He had no bullseye either. What happens to about 50% of people? The city of New York has got to, and I don't know if it's the doctors being afraid because they won't get paid, because the feds aren't allowing payment on certain things. I had to pay $250 out of pocket, which I'm going to have to do again, to a lab in California for the testing. CDC won't approve it. So the problem is the CDC is not going to change their format until they get the numbers. They need our numbers, and that is going to get done through you people. So I'm begging you, get those numbers.
Thank you, and I want to just say that I'm really glad that you've made such a good recovery. And it's true that people can have Lyme disease with no characteristic rash. The percents that I've seen are 70 to 80% of people have the rash, but that's just from a textbook. The point here is that we have to improve our reporting. The health department receives reports. We are not the doctors who make the diagnosis. Our Bureau of Communicable Disease tracks 73 different communicable diseases, all of which are subject to mandatory reporting to us. But your point is well taken, to work more closely with the provider community to improve that reporting. Do you want to add any? I mean,
No, that's one of the points I made,
yeah.
and that's absolutely one of the focuses going forward. We've got to get better at it.
What exactly is new here today? I mean, just reading the press release, it said that you're expanding the surveillance in parks, right? One, what does that even mean? Are you like spies surveilling?
No.
What does that mean? And what, I assume the bait boxes are new too. That's the
That's
brand new
correct.
thing. And then one last thing is, you said 750 cases in 2014 and over 1,000 in 2017. Are those citywide numbers?
Those are citywide numbers. Yes, that's right. Let me, and we can get you all the numbers on Staten Island, specific numbers. But the surveillance for ticks is what's being expanded in parks. We collect ticks. As you've heard, they don't jump. Well, I guess these special ticks jump. The Lone Star. But the black-legged, commonly called deer ticks, are basically coming onto human beings because you brush vegetation that has the ticks on it. And we do surveillance by literally dragging cloths and looking for ticks. And we've increased the amount of surveillance that we are doing twofold. So that's looking for ticks. Then the ticks are tested to see what bacteria they have in the ticks. So we've had one comment on human surveillance, and your question is about the tick surveillance. They're both part of the equation of why Lyme disease is going up in the city. We're both diagnosing it better, but we have a rapid expansion in the tick population, and that's where you get Lyme disease. Yes, yes.
You'll see them drag a piece of cloth in a particular location, and then look at that cloth and then pick ticks off. So we're going to move from, there was originally 13 we had at a school, it was near the woods, 14.
Now it's going to be 28, 14 to 28 sites. And then the bait boxes are, I think that the borough president described it as he has obviously become expert in this area. These are aimed at the mice, which are referred to as the maintenance reservoir for the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. These mice can become infected with the bacteria, and if a nymph, a baby form of the tick, it starts out as an egg, becomes a larva, then becomes a nymph, then becomes an adult. We're sort of moving into adult tick season now. But if it goes on the mouse, and that mouse has Lyme disease, has the bacteria, then we get an infected tick. And when the tick goes on the mouse, it can give the mouse Lyme disease. So that's a circular way in which the bacteria that causes Lyme disease is maintained in the mouse population. But the deer are, you can think of them as sort of the distribution agents. The deer are a much better source of blood meals for the developing tick. And without the deer, we wouldn't get the type of tick population that we have. The deer don't get infected with Lyme disease. They just carry the ticks around on their bodies and feed them.
How many bait boxes will there be and where?
That is still being worked out, but the idea in other settings, and you've heard that there are various studies underway, they've been placed sort of under people's garages and near their houses, and this is a thought of looking at wild areas and using bait boxes in parks.
Can you elaborate, Commissioner, on the Lone Star aggressive ticks versus the normal ones that we...
Well, my understanding of it is that in our city, that the black-legged tick is by far the most common form of tick that we see. The Lone Star tick can also carry diseases. The black-legged tick can carry different diseases than Lyme disease. I mentioned babesiosis, and there are other tick-borne diseases that for which the black-legged tick is the vector. But the borough president mentioned data on the Lone Star tick, so I should just ask him to give you those data.
Yeah, and my apologies to the commissioner. The data I use is not DOH data. We have Columbia University that's doing studies on Staten Island, and they came back in the preliminary study, just for an example, 2,674 black-lead nymph ticks, and there were 1,532 Lone Star nymph ticks. And it was Columbia University's assessment, well, that's a surprisingly high number for Lone Star.
Right. So we also have surveillance data, and I'll take a look at that with the team. You should know, I hope you know, Borough President, that our team is familiar with the Columbia Project, talks with them, and exchanges information with them. Yes.
Yeah, good collaboration.
It's a good collaboration.
What does the health department think is the driver behind these locally acquired cases of Lyme disease on Staten Island? What do you think is...
Well, this is part of a global phenomenon and a national phenomenon that is undoubtedly related to climate change. I'm not sure that the federal government will be talking about that because of the federal government's position on climate change, but I don't think that any thinking people would dismiss the fact that it's getting warmer, that it's easier for ticks to survive in this warm weather. It's easier for mice to survive. The mouse population of these white-footed mice, white-legged, is it, or white-footed?
White-footed mice, white-tailed deer.
Right, I got it. White-footed mice, their population is increasing, certainly, almost certainly because it's easier for them to survive winters because of rising temperatures. So this phenomenon that's being experienced here in Staten Island is one that other communities are confronting. I think maybe I'd be happy to talk separately with you because this is part of the life cycle. I don't know how interested people in the whole audience are, but the life cycle of the tick begins as an egg. moves on to a larva and a nymph, which is the baby poppy seed size tick. That's what begins its blood meals on a mouse, on small animals, and possibly birds as well. And then they move on to the deer. The maintenance reservoir is the mouse population, and that's why this strategy with the bait boxes targets mice, because that's where you get the bacteria in the mice, giving it to the ticks, and the bacteria in the ticks, giving it to the mice. So it becomes a circular pattern of an infection and reintroduction of infection between the tick and mouse population. The deer carry it all over the place. They're bigger, they have a lot more blood, and the ticks survive better and reproduce more effectively when they can get onto deer.
How long do you guys plan to invest this $600,000? How long do you foresee, you guys to invest this money? And when do you guys think you will bring on allow the bait boxes to be used on the deer and not just the mice?
Well, we're in conversations with the state, which is also in preliminary stages, with the idea of trying to tackle directly putting pesticides on deer, where I think you've heard from all of our electeds that they're eager to see novel methods explored. Thanks very much, everybody.